Hi everyone. So the UK government is back from its summer break and immediately thrown into turmoil because Brexit negotiations are on the agenda. This is one of the reasons why I thought that all along that the latest that there would be for a national election would be autumn of this year. I think I said October, so I might end up being a month or two out. We'll see. We'll see how right I am. This is why it's in turmoil at the moment. It's from BBC yesterday. May vows no compromise with EU on Brexit plan. This is her Chequers agreement. Theresa May has insisted she will not be forced into watering down her Brexit plan during negotiations with the EU. So she won't negotiate any further than her Brexit plan. That's it. Writing in the Sunday Telegraph, the Prime Minister says she will, quote, not be pushed into compromises on her Chequers agreement that are not in the national interest. They're not doing anything in the national interest. They're doing it only in their own interest. I shall continue with this, but Mrs May also warned she will not give in to those calling for a second referendum on the withdrawal agreement. She says it would be a gross betrayal of our democracy and trust. What if more people in the UK wanted a second referendum than didn't? Would it be a gross betrayal of democracy then? Article continues. The Chequers agreement would see the UK agreeing on a common rule book with the EU for trading in goods in an attempt to maintain frictionless trade at the border. There will not be frictionless trade at the border post-Brexit. Anybody telling you, like Jacob Rees-Mogg and Theresa May, anybody telling you that will be the case and that's what they want, they're living in cloud cuckoo land. Go and speak to a trucker. Go and speak to any trucker, anybody that moves through borders in Europe and borders in the UK. They will tell you. They're living in cloud cuckoo land, these politicians are. But critics say it will leave the UK tied to the EU rules and prevent Britain from striking its own trade deals in years to come. That's correct. The critics who say that, I think, are correct. The People's Vote, a cross-party group, including some MPs, is calling for a public vote on the final Brexit deal. And support for it is growing daily. The UK is on course to leave the EU on the 29th of March. 29th of March, so over 2 years we've had and they haven't agreed anything. The UK is on course to leave the EU on the 29th of March, but has yet to agree how its final relationship with the bloc will work. The EU has suggested that November is the latest the deal could be finalised. The government had previously ruled out another referendum. Doesn't matter what the people want, it would be undemocratic to give it them. Now that's her stance. Michel Barnier of the EU, this is from The Guardian, says he strongly opposes May's Brexit trade proposals. So she's saying she won't budge and he's saying no, neither will we. No deal is looking more and more likely. Michel Barnier has said he is strongly opposed to the Prime Minister's Chequers proposals on future trade, as he advised European car manufacturers that they will have to use fewer British-made parts after Brexit. Wow, so it's obviously going to affect manufacturing trade of car parts in this country. We'll just have to sell more weapons to Saudi Arabia and Israel, I suppose, to make up for the shortfall. I mean, our weapons trade is already 3% of GDP. We'll just have to make it 10, I suppose, to make up for the shortfall. The article continues, in his most damning condemnation yet of UK government's plans, the EU's chief Brexit negotiator said the British offer on customs was illegal and its suggestion of a common rulebook on goods would kill the European project. They've said this all along. They said, no, we're not going to do that. The Tories just sort of say, oh, well, yeah, this is what we're going to do. It's pathetic. Instead, in an intervention that will concern the 186,000 people directly employed by the car industry in the UK, Barnier warned European manufacturers that the streamlined system of imports and exports between the UK and the rest of Europe would come to an end. The former French minister added that in order for the EU car makers to enjoy low tariffs on their exports around the world, they would need to shun British manufacturers. And then he goes on to say why that's the case. Doesn't look good, does it? Going back to what she said there about it would be undemocratic to have a second referendum, well, the figures, this was from 27th of July, Independent, number of voters backing a second Brexit referendum now overtakes those against. So more people want a Brexit referendum than another referendum than don't, but it would be undemocratic to give it them. Some mental gymnastics are required there to back up that statement. And then this morning, Boris Johnson gets in on the action. He just cannot miss an opportunity to try and further his political career. That guy doesn't give a shit about what's best for Britain. He only cares what's best for himself and his political career and his political ambitions. That's all he cares about. Anybody who tries to tell you any different is wrong. Evening Standard, this is Boris Johnson attacks Theresa May's Chequers Brexit plan as a victory for Europe. Well, they're not going to accept it anyway, so how can it be a victory? There's no winners here, there's just degrees of losing badly. This article says former Secretary Boris Johnson has attacked the Prime Minister's Chequers Brexit strategy, saying it would be a victory for Europe. Writing in the Daily Telegraph, Mr Johnson branded it a fix that would only lead to a win for the EU and insisted that the UK is flying flat on the canvas in withdrawal talks. And he goes on to explain there that basically it's like a wrestling match which is fixed and the outcome is fixed. He's right in saying that. It is fixed. The outcome was fixed. It was fixed back in 2016. It was fixed that we were going to have another referendum. I have pointed this out many times. Said at the time, it's ridiculous. You can't have an in-out referendum without defining what out is first. Because otherwise, if you do vote out, everybody voted for different reasons and a different future, expecting we were going to get something different. Some people thought we were going to remain in the EEA. Some people thought we were going to have something else. Some people thought we were going to leave, and that was it. Article continues, Mr Johnson accused some members of the government of deliberately using the Irish border situation to stop a proper Brexit and effectively keep Britain in the EU. Have you got a solution to it then, have you, Boris? Of course he hasn't. There are two solutions to the Irish border problem, neither of which you're going to like and neither of which anybody's really going to like. I'll cover those in a minute. He said the real scandal was not that we have failed, but we have not even tried. Oh, what a shame. If only Boris Johnson had, I don't know, a position of power within the government, such as, off the top of my head, Foreign Secretary, where he could, be involved. We have not even tried. You're the one who left your post, mate. The blistering intervention comes as Mrs May faces growing opposition on Tory benches to the Chequers cabinet compromise on the Brexit strategy, which triggered the resignation from the government of Mr Johnson and obviously Michael Gove. This is the BBC News. They say Boris Johnson has said in that article, UK gets diddly squat from the May's Brexit plans. And this is the article that Boris Johnson wrote in the Telegraph. I'll link to all these below. Jacob Rees-Mogg thinks he's got a solution to the Irish border problem there. He wants people to be inspected at the Irish border just like during the Troubles. I shit you not, that's what he said. I've got the video of it. Take a look.
So Ireland would not be a free-for-all. It would be perfectly possible to continue with historic arrangements to ensure that there wasn't a great loophole in the way people could get into the UK, to leave us in just as bad a position as we are currently in. Sorry?
So what about the blue tunnel that you talked about earlier?
Well,
listen.
The blue tunnel, that there would be our ability, as we had during the Troubles, to have people inspected, that it's not a border that everyone has to go through every day. But of course, for security reasons during the Troubles, we kept a very close eye on the border to try and stop gun running and things like that. It's not inconsistent to have a border that people can pass through, but you're keeping an eye on.
Inspected just like the Troubles. I mean these Troubles. In these Troubles. Does he mean inspections like these? The whole point, the whole reason that these troubles were ended, one of the stipulations was there couldn't be a hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. How do you solve that? There's two ways you can solve it. There's two ways. You leave, or Britain leaves the EU, and Northern Ireland stops in the EU. And obviously, if that happens, Scotland are going to kick up a stink, because it looks like there's all the polling says that if we do leave the EU, Scotland will have another referendum. So I think it's 47% want another referendum if we leave the EU after Brexit, and 43% don't. So it's a clear majority there, 4-point majority. It's within the. There's going to be. It's going to be disaster, is what it is. The other option that we've got is to solve the island border problem is to stop in the EEA. And I've heard those talks, an interim period of like 3 years where we stop in the EEA, where there is, free movement of people is fine. That's, it's been taken off the table. That's one of the major reasons that people voted to leave in the first place. And this is all during a time where nurses demand Jeremy Corbyn back a second Brexit referendum, and other groups as well, the calls for a second referendum are growing. Excuse me. People are saying I've seen plenty of articles where people are saying if Jeremy Corbyn actually backs a second Brexit referendum, it will trigger an election, and he'll win. I think no matter what happens, we're going to see another election soon. I think it's inevitable now. I have done for quite some time. It's all this guy's fault. Remember that. Remember, he only put the referendum on the table to save his own party's ass and win in 2015 because so many people had left his party to UKIP because of the EU, and he had to bribe them into coming back by promising them an in-out referendum. And as I said at the time, you cannot have an in-out referendum. That's a ridiculous thing to have, because you have to define what out is first. Otherwise, it's going to be a shambles, and you're going to end up with at least, I said, there will be at least one more referendum, possibly many, if we vote to leave. And look at what they're all talking about now. And this is why, as I've covered before. Denmark, Maastricht Treaty. Denmark joining the Euro. Ireland, Nice Treaty. Sweden joining the Euro. France, EU Constitution. Netherlands, EU Constitution. Ireland, Lisbon Treaty. Greece, Euro bailout. Whenever there is a vote within a country, a referendum within the country that goes against what the EU want, it's either ignored or they're made to vote again. It's almost like the stance that the government have taken on this was inevitable. And it was inevitable that we were going to have another referendum, and it was inevitable that, they were going to scare us into stopping in the EU this time. I don't think they had any visions of actually leaving the EU, because the Tories are not doing what's best for Britain here. They're not doing what the people actually voted for. I voted Remain, remember, because I knew that it was going to be it was a ridiculous vote, and there was going to be more votes down the road. That was my reason for voting Remain. And I changed my mind multiple times leading up to that. But it does look like there's going to be a second referendum now. Whether you like it or not, it looks like that's going to happen. And if that happens, well, my vote will change, that's for certain. But I think many other people's will have changed the other way, and the EU will get their wish, and Britain will stop in the EU. I've got a feeling that might cause riots in this country. We shall see. One thing's for sure, the Tories are not doing what they were mandated to do. They've had to bribe the DUP to prop up their minority government with £1.5 billion of tax money, remember. And no matter which way she turns and no matter what they do, as soon as they made a decision either way, they're going to lose support and lose their majority. Which is why they've been kicking the can down the road for 2 years and just taking stances which are ridiculous, which the EU were never going to admit to, or rather not admit to, accept. This is why they're doing it. It's just kicking the can down the road, just trying to stop in power for as long as possible. And it certainly looks like with Brexit D-Day nearing, those days are numbered. We shall see. I've been pretty consistent in my saying I think there will be another referendum and I think there will be a general election later this year. I think a lot of that depends not on what the Tories do, but on what Jeremy Corbyn does. I've heard lots of people saying that if he comes out in support of a second referendum, there will be a general election and he'll be Prime Minister. I haven't got a crystal ball, so I can't say whether that will be the case. Let me know in your thoughts down below. But the Tories are not doing what's in the best interest of the country, in my opinion here. They are only doing what they possibly can to stop in power for as long as possible. And that is why, well, one of the many reasons why they have got to go. And I, for one, hope that there's a general election very, very, very soon. We'll see if it gets any closer as these EU negotiations come to a final head. If you like this video and you want to hear more, please click subscribe and click the bell down there as well so you get a notification of when I drop further videos. Otherwise, YouTube will hide it from you, any future videos. They have admitted that they do that. We are facing an absolute onslaught, a barrage from both the corporate media and corporations who are trying to silence our voices. They're trying to stop us from bringing you the truth and cutting through the partisan BS that you get in the mainstream media. They don't like it. We're their competition. So if you can support channels like mine, please do so. Please share the videos wherever you can. Talk to your friends and family and spread the word about what we're doing. If you can support us on Patreon, please do so as well. The link is down there. You can support me for as little as $1 a month, and every bit helps. We cannot do this without your support. Thanks very much for your support. Until next time, peace and take care.